Happy Thursday night, everybody. My name is Grace Pomeroy, and I'm a financial educator, speaker, and coach, and I can help you make money your friend in life, work, and love. Thanks for joining me on Facebook or on Instagram. It is so wonderful to have you all with me on this lovely Thursday night. Who else is ready for winter to be done? Definitely me. The seasons have been long. Winter has been a long season. It has been cold. It's been really snowy here. So I honestly cannot wait for the winter to be done and for spring to come. I spent a little time in Phoenix this week. I've been doing a lot of traveling lately, and that was just wonderful. Getting to experience that warm weather again, the sun on my face when it's not below zero was just wonderful. So I'm a little sad about having to come back up north. All right, but let's get on to today's topic, which is health insurance. Health insurance, while it may not seem like a financial issue on the outset, is actually incredibly related to finances because healthcare costs are a really big part of a lot of people's budgets, and it can be a budget buster, especially if the unexpected happens. So tonight, I want to share with you my healthcare story. And I'd like to share with you a bit about why my husband and I are really big fans of high deductible health plans. Now, before I go into it, I just want to offer you guys a quick disclaimer that this is not a specific endorsement for any particular health plan, and it's not an endorsement necessarily for high deductible health plans because everybody's situation is different. I'm just going to share with you how it's worked for my husband and I, and then you can take that and apply it to your own experience however you feel is best. You know your own healthcare needs. All right, so first let's start out with a few definitions because I often find that people don't quite understand exactly what health plan they have. As I'm talking to folks and I use the phrases low deductible or high deductible health plan, they don't always know what that means. So let's break down what a high deductible health plan is. A high deductible health plan is a health plan that carries a deductible that is higher. In other words, according to the IRS, it's defined as a plan that has a deductible of $1,350 for an individual. That's kind of the minimum amount that it needs to have. It can go up from there. Or $2,700 for a family in 2019. Now, if you're curious what a deductible is, I'll explain it in just a minute. But just to flag for you, I have a video on my Instagram right now that goes through a lot of those key healthcare terms. I encourage you to check it out, as well as a blog article on the topic too. A deductible is the amount that you're going to need to pay out of pocket that's on top of the premium or the amount that you're paying for that health insurance before your plan is going to kick in and help you pay for some of those costs. So that's what a deductible is all about. The other term that I'm going to be using today is HSA, or Health Savings Account. This is an account that allows you to save up for your healthcare expenses pre-tax. And one of the best things about it is that it's portable, which means that it can go with you no matter if you change from employer to employer, as many young adults tend to do, and older adults as well in this culture. Changing around to different employers, this account can come with you. Its sister account is the FSA, the flexible spending account. This is an account where you can save up for the course of one calendar year, but it's a use it or lose it kind of mentality, whereas the HSA stays with you, and it's even something that you can invest that money over time. All right, so now that we've got the definitions laid out here, let's chat a bit about our experience with healthcare. Now, some of you may know that my husband was in a serious car accident about 10 months ago, and that was something that completely rocked our lives, completely changed our lives. If you follow me at all on Instagram and Facebook, you'll be hearing updates on how he's doing and hearing a bit more about our story. Needless to say, he is doing well. He's still in recovery. It's a long process, but he is doing well. Prior to my husband's accident, though, 10 months ago, we rarely used healthcare. We really loved having a high deductible plan because we were able to get money from my employer. We get all of our health insurance through my employer to put into our HSA. We got about $200 a month from my employer. And because we were mainly just using preventative care, so going in for physicals, going in for dental cleanings, getting run-of-the-mill prescription drugs, we really weren't spending that much on healthcare out of our own pockets. So that HSA money just was accruing and accruing and accruing and building up for us to use later on when we needed it. And as you might guess, after my husband's accident, when he severely hurt his ankle, we really did need that money. But what's interesting is we definitely met our deductible for last year, but we didn't meet our out-of-pocket limit. So while we did have to pay some for our health care, our HSA helped us to cover a lot of those costs, and once we hit our deductible, our plan was covering a significant amount of those costs. So we really didn't end up paying that much out of pocket at all, even though my husband had a pretty serious medical emergency. Now, one of the reasons why we decided to stay with a high deductible health plan for 2019 is because we weren't anticipating very many medical expenses again. Now, there's a chance that my husband may need some additional health care. We still aren't really sure what he's going to need over the long term to take care of his ankle. But for right now, we thought, hey, last year when we had so many expenses, we still didn't end up paying up that much in healthcare, so we'd rather stick with a high deductible plan, have all that money continue accruing in our HSA, and if and when we need it, we can always grab that HSA money and use it to pay for those healthcare costs. Now, a couple of advantages of HSAs that people often don't know. The first thing is that it's a pre-tax savings account, like I mentioned earlier. What that means is that when you get your paycheck from your employer, your paycheck can take out that money, put it in your HSA before it is taxed. That's how that HSA works. The other key part of the HSA is that as the money is sitting there and it's earning interest, whether you've chosen to invest that money or it's just sitting there more like a regular bank savings or checking account and earning some interest over time, that interest is also tax-free to you. So once you take out that money, you're not going to be taxed on the interest as long as you're using it for specific healthcare expenses. And you can see more information about that on the IRS website or likely on your healthcare provider's website as well. And the triple tax savings here is that there's no tax on the money coming out as long as it's used for those healthcare expenses. So there's no tax on the money that you put in at the time you put in, no tax on that money as you're taking it out, and no tax on that interest. It's a huge deal. The other thing to think about here, especially for those of you on the line who might be older, if you have fewer healthcare expenses and you can use a high deductible plan and you can use that HSA as another source of retirement savings, this is a great way to save up even more money in that HSA account and be able to use that towards healthcare expenses in retirement. You can even use an HSA while you're on Medicare. You can't save in the HSA anymore, but you can still use the money. So if you've got any questions about healthcare, please throw them out there. I may not know the answers to it, but I'd absolutely love to hear your questions. It will frame up what I do for my blog, frame up future Facebook Lives. I really think the issue of healthcare is vitally important. So there's a question from Beth. Do all HSAs generate interest, or is it only some HSAs? So in my experience, Beth, a lot of HSAs do generate interest. Of course, I cannot promise that every single HSA does provide interest, but for the most case, they do. It's going to be a pretty small amount, similar to what your bank checking or savings account would accrue over time. But one of the things you can do in HSA accounts now, and I think this is actually a fairly recent development, is you can invest them. As long as your HSA provider allows for that opportunity, you can invest it just like you would retirement dollars. Now, something to be aware of course, is if you do plan to use your HSA for expenses in the course of a year, you may not necessarily want to invest all of that money as you would in the stock market, because if you need to pull out that money and have it be liquid, you don't want to have to time the market, so to speak, and see when it's the right time to pull out your stocks. Maybe investing part of it and then having a part of it in more of like a checking account that you can pull out over time. Alrighty, well, if you've got any specific HSA questions, FSA questions for those of you in low deductible plans, I'd absolutely love to hear it. And for those of you who are getting up a little older in age, I did have someone ask after my blog article this week if I could do a little bit on Medicare. Those of you who know me probably know that Medicare is one of my absolute favorite topics. I know, I'm such a nerd. But I'm really excited to share more with you. And even if you're not getting up there in age, just knowing the basics of Medicare can help as you're chatting with older adults that are in your life, or even helping your parents as they're going through this transition. I see one more question that I'm going to tackle before I go. Can HSA money be easily transferred between HSA companies when you switch jobs? Yeah, absolutely it can. It's pretty similar to the process if you've ever rolled money from, let's say, one employer plan. So let's say you were at, I don't know, Travelers Insurance, where my husband started out in his career, and then you moved over to American Family, and you can roll that retirement money over. It's a pretty similar process. Something also that I did, just to be aware of, I started out with an HSA with my first job with a company called Further. Again, no advertisements, just telling you what this is like. So I had an account with Further, and then when I started my next job and I had a high deductible savings account, they didn't have, or high deductible health plan rather, they didn't have a specific health savings account provider that they used. So I suggested that they use Further, and I was able to continue using that account over time. So whether you have multiple employers or not, you don't have to have a separate account necessarily, but you certainly can roll money over from one account to another. And all you have to do is just call that provider, and hopefully they'll make it as easy for you as possible. You might have to fill out a little bit of paperwork, but hopefully the process should be pretty simple overall. All right, let's see if we've got any other questions here. I'm not seeing any others, but again, feel free to submit them. If you're watching the live on Instagram, DM me with any questions that you might have. I'd love to hear from you. If you're on Facebook, feel free to just write that into the comment box. I'd love to hear the questions that you have around health expenses. It's a huge part of people's budgets. I would absolutely love to answer them. And if I don't know the answer, I'd love to do the research and look it up because I'm a bit of a healthcare nerd at the moment. One last thing I just wanted to bring to your attention is that I am doing some more speaking. As I mentioned earlier, I have been out and about speaking this week. I'm heading out to Massachusetts actually tomorrow to do a little bit more speaking. I absolutely love being on the road. I love presenting for folks, especially in the area of money, but also in the area of health and giving and generosity. So if your organization or your business would like to have me come out and speak, please check out my speaking page. The info is available on my website, www.grace.pomroy.com. And for those of you watching on Facebook, you can see that web address in the posts that will belong to this Facebook Live. Thank you guys again so much for joining me. Have a happy Thursday night and a wonderful weekend. And please stay warm out there. See you later, guys.